Thank y'all. As Professor Dillon said, I'm John Davis from the Department of Revenue, and I do appreciate the invite here to talk to y'all. This may be a little different than normal. I kind of hope it is, but but I'm going to give you a little bit of the day of the life of me and some of my career path that hopefully will be of interest and even looking a little beyond even the very next steps for jobs. But because I have had a number of different careers, but I'll get into that in a second. I'm going to introduce you briefly to me, talk about the Department of Revenue, um, what kind of jobs we have there, and how my department plays into the overall. Why do we care about IT security? Why should IT worry about security? I'll talk about my team. And then I want to walk through one real life disaster event that I had and why the technology really mattered for that. And everyone on the team, what they did turned out to be far more important than what they ever could have imagined back when we were going through it. And then some general career tips from my experience. So start with me. I'm John Davis. Like I said, I'm the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer at the Department of Revenue. My initial background was not in technology. I kind of wish they had a class like this one when I was in school, because I might have started out there, but I graduated in physics from Wofford, which an undergrad in physics will get you very little except some cool understanding of things. So then I went to Georgia Tech for mechanical engineering. I worked as an engineer for a few years. Back in 1991, there really wasn't a lot of graduates of computer science or computer engineering. So I kind of moved into that as the technology developed, and it was very interesting to me. So I moved into a full technology career about 5 years later. I have worked, and this is one very cool thing about the field you guys are looking at with technology, is it underlies every industry, and it's very similar across many industries. So I've worked in various levels of IT and management for healthcare companies, law firms, very large financial services institution, a bank, higher education, and state government. So again, very ubiquitous tools that you're learning. I'm born and raised in South Carolina. Been married for 29 years to my beautiful wife, Sarah, and we have 4 kids, 3 of whom have gone into STEM, one of whom is a professional ballet dancer in Atlanta. So got to follow your dream wherever that is. So Department of Revenue, our job is obviously collecting revenue for the state. Our mission statement, this is just straight from our website, is to administer the revenue, the laws of the state with integrity, effectiveness, and fairness to all taxpayers, while maintaining the highest security and the protection of taxpayer information. Personally, as a chief security officer, I like that protecting security and the data is in our mission statement. It's part of our core, and that's my role. Our goals as an agency are to increase tax and regulatory compliance, make sure the people who should pay taxes do, and that they do that in a secure way, and that it's customer centric, and that we engage and empower employees. And that's one thing I found. I've very much enjoyed the environment. I've only been there about a year. Now, again, I'll give you a little bit of my story to get there, but that's so important. Find a place that values employees. A lot of people say they do, but you can tell pretty quick by looking on Glassdoor or in interviews, asking questions. Our role, like I said, is collecting money. We collect 95% of the general fund of revenue that comes in the state of South Carolina. And the state of South Carolina's budget for this fiscal year is over $40 billion. The general fund, 12 billion of that comes from the general fund. We collect 95% of all of that. So we're collecting many, many millions of dollars daily on a daily basis, and especially around this time of year. But it's not just this time of year, because we not only do the income tax, but corporate taxes, excise sales tax, many other things are handled and processed and brought into the state through this department. I'm a part of Service Security and Technology Services, what we call STS, and that's our overall technology wing, which includes the IT infrastructure, which is run by our CIO, and the security area, which is run by me, our Chief Information Security Officer, and it includes our tax portal development team, which is a whole separate wing of the tax analysts and the developers that create that. All of those, every project is vetted and reviewed by people on my team. And I'll go into who's on my team and what kind of positions we have, because we actually have a couple of them that we're trying to fill very shortly. Not going to read all these, but just kind of threw together a few numbers on the overall technology team. We did about 20,000 tickets last year, support a little over 1,000 people. Two of these I will highlight: the nightly vulnerability checks. Anybody know what vulnerability checking is? That's where if a vulnerability comes out on a certain application, like a Microsoft application, and there's a patch for it, as soon as that vulnerability is discovered, it's put into scanners, which we scan every night. We scan for over 50 million different vulnerabilities across every software and every server and every PC every night. And it is. There's a number of different tools. Nexus is what we use, a Nexus scanner, and that's an industry standard tool. But again, it takes daily updates on what vulnerabilities are discovered, what's out there, and if there's a patch available to fix it. And so it compares that every day against every system we have. Our firewall is out there blocking any malicious traffic or unknown traffic. Another one of these numbers on that top right is over 300 million per month attempted attacks or blocks. So we're blocking over 300 million things at the firewall every month. However, that number is actually from this stats that was pulled 2 months ago. Actually, just a couple days ago, 2 days ago, saw our latest quarterly reports. This past month, for some reason, there was a spike, and we blocked about 1 billion. We blocked almost 1 billion over the previous month. So that's the kind of thing my team looks for. So this is my team. I'm the CISO team has multiple areas. I have about 35 people working directly for me, which includes a network operations center. This is a great way to get into security if you're interested in it, because the security operations center, they monitor alerts coming from these scans or just from any anomalies throughout the system. Is continually 24/7 bringing alerts to our NOC SOC for them to research, investigate, and then pass the ones that are more significant either to an application team or to possibly to our security engineering team. I have security engineering and automation, operations. Governance, risk and compliance and privacy are not are a little bit different side of the house, but those are the ones who are making sure our policies are always up to date and current with the latest regulations that we have to follow. We follow IRS regulations because we get IRS data. So obviously, when you file taxes, anybody in here filed taxes yet? Good few of you. You put a lot of data in there. You put not only your social security number, address, phone numbers, but your financial data, everything you've made. That's very critical data. And unfortunately, 12 years ago, the Department of Revenue had a security incident, and they were hacked, and some of that taxpayer data was stolen. And you see those all the time over the news, that people are hacked, and so they have to offer credit monitoring or credit repair and have to do all this stuff. We went through that 12 years ago. I wasn't here, but because of that, and because of the value of the data that we have, there was a tremendous amount of resources, staffing, and time and attention paid to increasing our security. So where we are today is a whole different level than where it was 12 years ago. In fact, on our last 2 audits by the IRS, they audit every state agency, every state revenue agency across all the states, every 2 years to ensure that they're fully compliant, that they're safe, that they're not putting the IRS's data at risk, because they're giving us data. We can share data with our federal IRS, of course, because our tax returns are partly based on federal information. And so because of that, they inspect every Department of Revenue across every state every couple of years. The last 2 years, the South Carolina Department of Revenue has been the highest in the nation in terms of our security stance and our grade on their audit. Talked a little bit about, y'all know why cybersecurity is important, and that as technology people, it's super important to pay attention to security. A data breach costs on average over $4 million per breach. 60% of small businesses go out of business after a cyber attack. Very time consuming, very painful. User education, super important, because 57% of users reported leaving their password on a sticky note, which I'm sure none of y'all have ever done that. But global spending on cybersecurity passed $1 trillion in 2021, and it's actually gone up significantly each year since then. 95% of breaches are due to human error. That could be an IT person or putting in systems without proper security. It could be an end user clicking on a phishing email. It's actually a very common way. But and I'm gonna skip this just for time, but has anybody seen the this is a link to a live threat map? Well, actually, is internet's decent work. I can show it just for a second. But just to show us that it's real. Wow, that is fast. Nice internet. This is real time. This is right now today, attacks and hacks and people clicking on malware, infections that are going on throughout the world today.
We can come back. We can back it up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it looks nice for me. Let me go back to. So yeah, it's there's a number of those. Any security company has those kind of live maps, but so take a look at that if you have time. So some of my goals for this fiscal year, with the number of millions of checks that we're doing every night, who thinks it's feasible for my 30 team of 35 to go through those 100 million attacks every night? We use a lot of automation. We use a lot of tools and a lot of machine learning, or maybe you call some of it AI now, but we use a lot of automation to check these things and to go through the servers, and even assigning tickets to the application teams. A lot of that's automated, but yeah, that's going to continue to be on my plan, my roadmap, to do more and more automation, because you have to do it both on the technology side and the security side. Our server provisioning process right now is almost fully automated. There's nobody out there sticking a disk in a drive or even pulling something down and clicking through and install when we install servers. And the more you can get to that in the organization you're in, the more they can get to that, the more consistent processes you have. And really, it elevates all of your jobs as well. Because if you're in a company who's helping automate some of the routine click, 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 click stuff, then it allows people to focus on more strategic and more interesting or more things that require people to do that. We are phishing and social engineering awareness. Has anybody familiar with, I'm sure y'all are, but the video and voice fakes that are now out there, the AI fakes? We came across that. And so because of that, that's one of my initiatives, was to really educate our user base on things that they may never have experienced before, one of which is the AI voice fakes. And that one likely is saying Microsoft PowerPoint's not responding. I can restart it.
And it just froze up. What do you think? Should
I'd say, yeah, close it or let it just kill it. Oh, you can cancel that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find it.
Oh, you mean the dot share. Oh, no, it's this thing. This up,
Okay,
I can move it.
okay.
All right, sorry about that.
Then just, yeah, probably lower.
It may take it. Oh, there we go. All right, we'll jump back to where we were. No, it doesn't. I have a slide with an embedded video and it's kind of freaking out the PowerPoint. But I can skip it. No, I mean, yes, but I got it.
I know, that's why I don't know. He's just gonna skip it this time.
Okay, perfect. So I want to walk you through quickly something I experienced at a previous job that, again, this is what I was talking about, that really the previous work over the past 3 years had really mattered. And it was a real life flood event, which turned out to be a success story, but only because of the timing. It could have been a total disaster. I was working for a large financial institution in South Carolina with $30 billion in assets. We provided funding and IT services across a 15-state area. And so I was responsible for the data center, the IT infrastructure, and IT operations at the time. We had about 1,200 servers. About 1,100 were virtual. And that's a key fact in this, because when I started, the server standards were all physical. Again, this is 2011-ish. So that was not unusual in 2008 for there to be mostly physical servers. So we had very little virtualization. Here's my trend, in fact, of the virtual versus physical. In 2008, you see the blue line is the physical servers. The green is the virtual, which were basically non-existent. And then the dotted line is our total number of servers. So our total number of servers went up the whole time, but we were converting them and adding new ones were all added virtual. So by 2011, the vast majority was virtual servers. Also, just as a side note, saw an interesting side effect of that. If y'all hear how much power data centers take, our data center for 5.5 years was increasing its power usage about 10% every year up until 2008, when we started that virtualization initiative. And then it dramatically reduced as we virtualized servers and moved to that. Again, that turned out to be super important because there was a flood. A water main broke right outside of our building. Our headquarters building, where the data center was, put 150,000 gallons of water in our sub-basement. Now, our data center wasn't in the sub-basement, of course, and we had a backup generator for the data center. However, the transformers for the building were in the sub-basement, along with the cooling HVAC units were in the sub-basement. They were destroyed. So the building was uninhabitable. Our headquarters building and our data center building was uninhabitable, no power and cooling for over 6 weeks. And we were serving clients that depended on us, and that every day down meant a vast amount of money was being lost every day that we were down. Fortunately, we were able to bring I had put in a proposal actually only about 6 months earlier to revise our disaster recovery data center because it was not adequate for the building's needs. And we knew that. And senior management had bought off on my plan. I said, we need to do this like soon because we're at risk. Our building is old. We have infrastructure that's committed to things in the sub basement. I had pointed this out in an executive presentation that we were dependent on sub-basement equipment that could be destroyed. Our alternate data center was not adequate to run our systems. So this water came, destroyed the building, the sub-basement of the building with all the power and cooling. And so management, the CEO and CFO were both out there at 1 a.m. on a Friday night with me. They were like, John, is there any way we can run an alternate data center? I said, not in any reasonable amount of time. However, our data center is fine. It just has no power and cooling. If we can bring in power and cooling, because we had put in that virtualization over the last few years, the servers took a lot less power than they needed to, a lot less cooling. There were a lot less physical units. Then we brought in tractor trailers with portable power and cooling and ran it into the building. And we ran the data center. We had it up by late Saturday night, from like 1 or 2 a.m. Saturday morning. Saturday night, the data center was up and fully functional. We had to bust through some windows to do that and run the tubes. And because of this, we had to hire 24/7 security guards. This was not a cheap endeavor, but because our building was open, we had to bust through walls, cut out sheetrock to get cooling and power from all outside the building into that data center. Again, nobody could work in this building. It was not up to OSHA standards, so couldn't work in it, but we got the data center running. One thing I want to point out too of unintended consequences that it's important to kind of think beyond just the immediate thing is this is a UPS, this is a generator that was powering the data center. We knew we were going to be running for at least a month or more on this portable equipment. And it was just on tractor trailer generators and cooling. So we wanted some redundancy. So we brought in a second generator and second cooling, and we actually had to have 2 or 3 of them to run it. So we had an alternate one for each one of those. This one, this green one you see, was put by the building, and another one was brought beside it. However, the water had eroded the underneath the asphalt, and the second one we put in punched through the asphalt. We had just finished refueling the green one, so it had hundreds of gallons of diesel fuel. The other one, as soon as it was set down, punched through the asphalt, stopped within inches of the other one. So we brought another tractor out, which you can see in the background there, to lift that back up, separate it, and immediately set a new standard of, hey guys, nothing heavy can be within any proximity of the building or anything else in the parking lot. So it was an interesting experience. But in summary, like I mentioned earlier, the production data center with 1,000 servers, because most of them were virtual, was 100% operational by late Saturday night. Monday morning, although our entire headquarters staff was displaced or working remotely, the 2,000 customers around 14 states came into work Monday morning without issue. They didn't even know. They had to be told that we had had this major flood disaster. It did lead to a lot of funding for a new alternate data center. In fact, it was kind of funny because at 2 a.m. that night, the CFO said, so John, how much did you say it would take to rebuild our data center? This was a proposal I had made like 6 months earlier. And they had said, let's do it, but let's do it over the next like 5 years because the risk is small. That night at 2 a.m., he said, how much did you say it would cost? And we were running, we had a plan to get it running, but he still asked. And I told him, and he said, let's go ahead and do it now. So as soon as we were recovered from this, we were fully funded for totally revamping the alternate data center with live replication. So at the end of another year and a half, we could be up within 1 to 2 hours fully functional. If our data center was destroyed, everything was replicated in real time, and we could be up within a couple hours with every system in an alternate location, because that might have needed to be done here. And if it was, the company would have lost many, many millions of dollars because they weren't ready. So I want to finish on some career things, some career advice just from my perspective. I have, like I say, I moved from engineering into IT. I started as an IT system administrator because I was kind of starting over in a new career. So I moved to Atlanta to do that, and then moved back to South Carolina for another system engineer job. So I've been in a number of different database engineering, data center type jobs. And then I worked as an IT director. And the way I had that opportunity was there was no IT director job available. That, I mean, at my company, there was no IT director. I was just a system administrator and IT was fully outsourced. So all the higher level stuff was outsourced to a vendor. I was responsible for kind of reviewing their work and looking at the invoices and all that. And I made a presentation to our board of directors saying, guys, if you give me a help desk person, I could cut for on the order of $50,000. I can cut 150,000 out of this contract. And they did that. And then the next a few months later, I said, guys, if you give me funding for a couple more positions, a sysadmin and an engineer to work with me, then I can cut another 200 out of this. I went on until I ultimately had a team of 6 people working for me, and I had saved the company. The contract was almost $1 million, and I built an IT team on a little more than half of that. So I saved them a ton of annual money, and they had better service because we had built the team. So they proactively came to me and said, John, you're not a system administrator. Can we make you an IT director and give you a 50% salary increase? Like, sure.
It seems like that was one of the reasons why I think, investors don't have to do it.
Yes.
So you said when the contract.
Yes. In that case, they were outsourcing their whole IT department. And honestly, a lot of it wasn't the labor. They were also outsourcing like the firewall and the security services and the data lines. Like, for example, they had a high-speed data line, but their high-speed internet connection went to the vendor and then the vendor to here. So it was like we were paying for an extra. I was like, man, if we just set that up here and then have a person, we could still use the vendor. We still did. Even at the end of the day, I retained that vendor just on a much smaller contract to do kind of essential things, but I made us the hub, not them. And some of those changes were very significant cost savings. In fact, 5 of the senior management jobs listed here in that second bullet, which includes CIO, Director of Technology and Security, Director of IT and Facilities at another place, IT Operations and Infrastructure, and Vice President of Technology and Security at Providence/MUSC Health, which was my last job before here. 5 of those senior management jobs did not exist before I started. 3 of them were never advertised and never listed anywhere or with any recruiter. No recruiter ever knew about him. 2 of them, that was because they were created for me after I made a proposal to do something different and create that. And so I would encourage y'all, looking at job ads is certainly not bad. Using recruiters is not bad. Those are all very good tools. I encourage you to do that and do it well, but also think beyond that. Contact people, research companies you want to be in, contact leaders, find the people who have decision-making authority. Like I say, 2 of these jobs, I just found a company I knew nobody at. Contacts is amazing. If you have contacts and if you have your network and you can leverage that, that's great. But even that's not essential. I found one company, which was one of my best jobs, and I was there for about 6 or 8 years as the Director of IT Ops and Infrastructure. I contacted the CIO blind. I mailed him some letters. I sent him some emails, kind of pestered him enough until he agreed to meet with me. And I had researched his company and what they were doing. And I told him what I could do and what I had success with in the past. And so he said, you know what? One of our director level positions is very overloaded and he's overwhelmed. I think I'd like to split that position and put you in the half where you have expertise. And so it was created for that. So don't underestimate what people can do. If you're there and you're in front of somebody at the time they're experiencing problems or have a need, that can really be valuable.
Yeah, about 5 minutes.
All right. I had just some kind of funny things. If you are looking at ads, sometimes you have to be a little careful about what they really mean. And I won't read all these, but I liked a couple of these. Must be deadline oriented. You'll start 6 months behind schedule on your first day, or some overtime required may mean sometime each night and each weekend. Seeking candidates with wide variety of experience. Make sure that doesn't mean you're going to replace 3 people who just left. So anyway, just some funny things. Again, I'm not opposed to looking at ads. In fact, I would say I was actually glad to see on your syllabus some LinkedIn content. And so I'm assuming that was a training about that. I have noticed right now, like even 5 years ago, LinkedIn was not the best place to look for jobs. It's a good place to network even then. But now, in the last few years, it seems like everybody's got their jobs on LinkedIn. We do. We also have all of our jobs on careers.sc.gov. What I was saying earlier about contact decision makers and pursue that and try to get in front of the people because they can create jobs. Unfortunately, I'm in a job now where I have no power to do that. I'm in state government, it's very regulated. Everything we post and create, it's going to be on careers.sc.gov. So that's a good site to know about, careers.sc.gov. That has every job in state government on every level. And there's a wide variety. There's things that you would never expect to even think about. So browse around there. It's got some good summer internships, jobs. I have a couple jobs that are about to be posted there. One of them is on my security operations center, which is a fairly entry-level job. I do have a couple of summer interns that I have just filled. So for this summer, I have that. However, I'm not opposed to doing interns other than the summer, and I have in the past. We've brought an intern just mid-year because we came across someone and we had a need, and so we brought them in. And in one case, it doesn't even have to be a student or somebody young. We had someone who came in like 35 years old, came in as an intern, worked as an intern for a year and a half, and then we hired him as soon as we had a vacancy because he was good. So,
Some of those students were actually from our class.
oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So, any questions for me? We got a little late start, but I think we're still pretty close to on time, so.
Any questions? So Cindy has a couple opportunities, just so you're aware, these guys are all seniors looking for internships and level positions. Background in all the IT areas such as networking, cybersecurity, since that's a good mix. So that is exactly new talent.
Yeah. And one thing I'll also say, I mentioned I changed from engineering to technology, but then when HIPAA was passed, the cybersecurity framework for healthcare, I happened to be working for a healthcare company at the time. And so they said, hey, you're our CIO, we need you to see what HIPAA is all about and make sure we're in line with the security. So that kind of started me in the security. And I did both for a few years on an upper senior management level until this past job when I moved to an exclusively security related position. So changing jobs, even changing fields, technology has so many, I mean, y'all know this, but it has so many different avenues that you can go down and change. So be open to that as well. Yeah.
So speaking of that, I'm not sure if I missed it, but you went from physics to security. What sparked that? Like what made you?
I never really planned to work in physics. I just wanted to go to a small college. So I went to Wofford and I wanted to be in engineering. And then I was planning to go to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has nothing but engineering essentially. And so I wanted to go to a small college first. So I went to Wofford, got the physics degree, immediately went to Georgia Tech for engineering. And then I worked as an environmental engineer, actually for DHEC in state government. I was overseeing the cleanup of hazardous waste sites, the Superfund sites, some of the worst in the state. And but as a part of that, I also was kind of had a sideline within my agency of state government to do their computer support and even some of their server work because they didn't have a team at the time. And I liked it. I really enjoyed it. So I decided, hey, I want to work in technology full time. And then, like I say, when HIPAA came out, it kind of pulled me from pure technology and technology infrastructure and data center into IT security. But I like both. I still like to keep up with just the pure technology. Any other questions?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank y'all.